Welcome to Prime Time. Today we're going to give a tutorial on the Legacy hardware client. The hardware client is software that is installed on a local PC that acts as a proxy between the time clock and the web server. So the hardware client communicates to the clock. It will pull the punches from the clock, process them, and then send them up to the web. It will also grab the setup from the web and bring it down and program the clock with the setup. When you open the hardware client, you'll be looking at something similar to this. You'll have your menu items at the top. The server URL should be in there, your company alias, and the clocks for your particular company. To pull the punches on a clock, you would select the clock so that it highlights in blue, and then click on Action, and then click Pull Terminal and send all punch files to server. If we need to program the clock, again you select the clock, you select Action, and Program Terminal using Setup File from Server. You could also get Terminal Setup File from Server, Setup File retrieved successfully, and then from there you could program the terminal using the local setup file. Sometimes this is easier. Usually I just use the program terminal using setup file from server. Now even though we're clicking on Action up here and we see these here, we could right click on the clock and select Pull Terminal, send all punch files to server if we want to grab the punches off the clock manually, or we could program it right from here, Program Terminal. It's telling us that the terminal will be pulled to punch file first if required. What that means is it's going to do this first and then program. So it wants to grab the punches from the clock if there are any on it, and it'll process those, and then it'll program the clock. And what it's doing when it programs the clock, it's sending over the function key instructions like which one is used for enter department or enter job, which keys are in, which key is out. It's also sending the date, the time, all the different parameters it needs. In some instances, it may be sending employee names, card numbers that are authorized to use the clock. So that's what the program clock is for. So if you have a clock where the time is off or somebody's badge is not showing up or say an invalid badge, you can come to the clock, right-click Program Terminal, or select the clock, click on Action, and Program Terminal. Now, we see checkboxes over here and some checkboxes down here. The checkboxes are if the clock is set to auto pull. Now, if you've got different locations and different copies of the hardware client at each location, you don't want to select every clock, because if you do, and then we start the polling service or polling application and run as a service, it would try to pull both of these clocks, and it may not be able to reach this one, which means it's going to give an error every time. So it's important to know which clocks that your installation of the hardware client controls before selecting these clocks over here on the left-hand side. By putting a check mark in this clock, putting a check mark and start the polling application when the window is closed, and telling it to run as a service by putting a check mark in here, when I click close, it's going to start a service in the background, and depending on the schedule that is set up in the software, it's going to grab the punches from that clock and program the clock on schedule for the specific clock I have selected right here. Now, when opening the application to begin with, for the hardware client, when you click on your Start button and go to the hardware client, or whether it's a shortcut on your desktop, most times with today's Windows 10 and even the newest security releases on Windows 7, you have to right-click the application shortcut and then select Run as Administrator. If you need assistance with this, please reach out to Primetime, and we'll be more than happy to help. Thank you for watching.